Sports Inquirer here today with head coach of Georgia State basketball, Rob Lanier. Team's coming off a big win at Georgia Southern, a big rivalry, second half comeback. Just taking back to that contest and what led to that victory.
Well, it was a great environment, first of all. It was a tremendous introduction into the rivalry for me. I mean, what a great venue, great crowd, and obviously they're a very good team, very well coached. Mark does a great job. And, you know, we worked on some things specifically going into the game, and we didn't get much carryover. And because they're so good, we had very little margin for error. So we dug a hole for ourselves, and we believed that somewhere along the line we would make our run. But a lot of times when you get behind like that, you always make your run a little bit too late. And fortunately for us, we gave ourselves a chance early enough in the game that we had the opportunity to finish, and we made enough plays at the end to come out on top. So it was a good experience for our guys. Probably the best response we've had to some adversity all year, and that's something as a staff that we've been looking for.
What about just defensively? And you're leading the conference in, I think, field goal percentage for and against, at least especially at the three-point line. Just talk about that defensive effort in the second half to limit those possessions and make that comeback.
Yeah, you know, it kicked in late in the game. At halftime, they were shooting 47% from the field, and they made some critical threes. And I believed that we would make a run simply because I felt like somewhere along the line our defense would surface. And it did. And we got some points off our defense. And we got the game into 5-on-5 a little bit more instead of putting them in transition with our turnovers and our poor shots. We have generally done a good job guarding the three-point line. One of the biggest things for us, and it happened in the game in the beginning of the second half, is that we fouled too much and we put them on the foul line. We had 9 fouls in the first 5 minutes of the second half, and we started to play a little bit better without fouling late. Didn't put them on the free throw line as much, even though we fouled a three-point shooter up by 4. So there's still a lot of growth out there for us to develop. So long way to go.
Yeah, and then 5 Panthers in double figures, led by Kane Williams with 15 and got 7 rebounds as well. Let's talk about his maturation and just his continued growth and being a leader for the team now as a junior. And you mentioned earlier he was a big part of your transition when you first got here. And let's talk about his just continued strong play for you.
Yeah, I think Kane's bought in. I think he's a smart guy, and I think he knows that we're trying to teach the right things. And I think he's growing as we grow as a team. He's growing along with us, but he's a tremendous competitor. There's no question. He wanted to win that game, and I thought that he didn't let the frustration of how the game was going get the better of him, and he's done that in the past, where we kind of lost his focus because he didn't feel like, collectively we were competing at a level. But I think he's taking more personal responsibility, and you can see it in his play.
Midpoint of the conference season, you guys are second place, or top half of the conference. Where would you assess the team is right now? I know you continue to improve every game possible, but where do you just see the team as far as honing into conference play and then eventually preparing for the tournament in March?
Well, I mentioned it. We're one of the worst rebounding teams in the country. We're one of the worst teams in the league and in the country at putting our opponents on the free throw line. So some of those positive stats, three-point field goal percentage, some of those things we have in our favor, they get neutralized by those other things. And if we can improve in our transition defense, defending without fouling, and rebounding the basketball, and some of our strengths aren't going to matter as much. But if we can improve in those areas, then maybe we've got a chance to do something.
You also have a unique stat. You lead the conference in steals and assists per game. Talk about the backcourt and having that unique statistic. So you're distributing the ball very well, but also defending the perimeter well as far as your steals.
Yeah, I mean, we're active. We got guys who have good instincts, and guys that we do emphasize trying to get deflections, so those things have been good for us. Sharing the basketball, we've talked about before, is a byproduct of a team that buys into defense, and I think being a good defensive team requires a level of selflessness that I think carries over into your offense, and I think that's why you see that. We work hard on D, you get the ball, and then you share it. And I think I still think we got a ways to go defensively on the ball, but collectively, I do think there is at least an understanding of the importance of team defense, and I think that has, when we're defending well, it appears that we share the ball better.
Sure. And lastly, you have South Alabama coming up later this week. Josh Ajayi, top 5 in points and rebounds in conference. Talk about I don't know how far you scouted him, but just talk about defending him and the challenges that South Alabama will present to you.
Yeah, they're such an
Thursday.
athletic team, and you know, Ajayi, Trey, you know, they're such a good athletic team, and they drive the ball so aggressively. They're number 4 in the country in getting to the free throw line, which is a recipe for disaster for us because we're so bad at keeping people off the free throw line. So this is a real challenge for us because it's obvious they want to drive the basketball and put pressure on the paint, put pressure on the rim, and force you to prevent them from getting to the free throw line. And so we've got to take on that challenge, limit them to 1 shot, and then we're getting better now at executing versus zone. You know, we've seen a lot of zone of late, and they're a zone team, and we've gotten better at executing offensively versus zone. So we've got to establish that comfort zone against these guys.
Do you think that's just the teams are seeing that? Why do you think you're seeing more zone? Or do you think you're shooting the ball so well from the outside that leads to zones? Or why do you think that's? Why do you think that is?
I think Ron won the league a couple of years in a row playing zone, and he left the league, and they said, "All right, we're going to try that." I don't know, but it's been going on 5 straight games now where we've seen predominantly zone, and we're going to see it in the next 2. So we just gotta. But because we're seeing it, we're putting more time into it, and we're getting better. But when we went on the Alabama road trip, it tripped us up a little bit. It tripped us up a little bit at Arkansas State. And we've seen it enough now that we're starting to get our feet under us and starting to execute without so much hesitation. We're starting to play. And you can see our guys starting to get some confidence against what they're seeing. And we're a good enough shooting team that if we're taking the shots we want, we're going to make our share of.